Broadcasting alive from the Green Room Studios in Nashville, Tennessee, it's the At Home Show with Josh Cary and David Bates, celebrating 25 years of home and garden wisdom. Without further ado, your hosts, Josh Cary and David Bates.
And howdy. Welcome in, everybody. It's Saturday morning. You know what time it is. It's time for the At Home Show. I am Josh Cary.
And I'm David Bates.
Yes, you are. Speak up. You get a frog in your throat?
No, I don't. Is my audio a bit low?
A little bit. Not too bad. Not too bad. You're looking good,
be
though.
The judge of that, but welcome in, everyone. We're really glad to have you all aboard this Saturday morning. And like all Saturday mornings,
yes,
there's going to be some semblance of weather.
Every day.
We just need to bring that up and discuss what's happening this week. And as you can see, we've kind of getting into that summertime pattern. Yes, we are in June officially now. Today it's going to be mostly sunny. I have 92 degrees and sunshine, a few clouds, and that's kind of the way it's going to be. Fortunately, as we go through the weekend, there's a slight cooling trend. 91.65 on Sunday, 89.63 Monday, back to 90 again on Tuesday, 64 for the overnight low, 85.62 Wednesday, 84.59. We like seeing those 50s in the overnight low temps as we had I think this morning. 86.60 a week out on Friday and 88.66 a week from today. And as the obligatory forecasts are this time of year, there's always a chance of thunderstorms at the very end of the forecast, and it stays out there. However, there were a few areas around Middle Tennessee that got some showers. My brother Mark out in Brentwood told me that he got like 1.1 inches of rain.
Wow.
I got some Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he says it came out of nowhere, it dumped, and it was gone. So he's working on a project at his house. I guess us Bates guys or project kind of guys, I don't know how to not do projects. It's what keeps us relatively sane, whatever that is. But anyway, so there we go with the weather. Enough about that. Let's welcome everyone else here in our group here this morning. And of course, you've already heard a voice over there. That's Adam Chapman, the general manager himself. Adam, welcome in this morning. Hey, we've got a guy sitting in for you next week, Adam. It's going to be a dude named Austin. Yeah, Austin. Let me see that mug again. Come on, get it back up there. Get it back up there. There you go.
Boy. Art right there. Who made that?
Yeah.
Very talented person.
Someone very talented.
Very talented person.
A very cool mug. And that other voice and face you see there, Caroline Gant. Welcome in, Caroline.
Good morning.
Great to see you both this morning.
Good morning.
And obviously, we're making that transition into the summer season. It's beginning to feel like it now. Not severely, thankfully. Maybe, we've done a bit of talk about El Nino, and that's not just the name, the boy. That is El Nino with respect to the weather pattern that's over in the Pacific. And I do have all, by the way, a note to Tyler, I do have all of my audio.
Okay.
And good morning, Tyler.
Hey.
Yeah, that's
morning.
That was the other voice I was getting around to.
Yes.
Good morning to you, Tyler.
Good morning, David. How you doing?
We couldn't do what we do without you. And we don't want to. So it all works out.
Never.
So anyway,
Happy to be
anything special that you guys have on your minds you want to get into before we tackle the questions
What I'll say is Mr. Trist, as I was walking into the show, Ben,
that would be Ben
Ben
talking about.
He made a special request that I tell people to keep their water hoses and water cans close by.
Yes.
Yes.
Good job, Ben.
Keep them ready.
Did he say hose pipe, or did he actually use water hose?
I don't remember what he said exactly.
I could see him saying hose pipe.
Hose pipe.
I think maybe he did.
That sounds like
I
a
broke
Ben
myself
thing.
of that habit because I grew up, is it a hose or is it a pipe?
Yes.
Or is hose pipe hyphenated, or is it all just one word crammed together.
I think it depends on what
So-
state you're in.
What is it here?
Hose
I
pipe.
just usually go with garden hose, which
I
is
say
think,
garden hose.
By the way, the expandable variety that you warned me about, you were right.
They're garbage.
they are garbage.
I had
They
one that lasted
are
a
no
month.
good.
I got almost a year out of both
You don't
of them.
say.
But it's amazing how quickly they will get punctured by a piece of grass. I mean, much less going near a rose bush.
It's all
Yikes.
pressure relative. If you had a regulator on the valve, it could keep the pressure at or below 30 psi. You could probably extend the life of them quite a bit. If you let 60 or 70 pounds of pressure get on it, they don't last very long. They're just looking for a place to explode. So yeah, they're convenient.
They're light.
In that when
yeah.
you get ready to throw them away, you can just they're very easy.
You
Yes.
cannot,
Yeah.
you can't get parts for them. You can't repair them because, one of them actually punctured right near the end that I know how to repair, but you can't get a part for it.
I have
Sad.
found some alternate uses for cut the ends off of them and use them like for
Bungee?
letting like lowering a bucket off of a roof, that kind
sure.
of thing.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
They're good strength, so they're really good for that application. But their watering days are numbered. So if you have one, enjoy it while you have it.
Yep. It's a good deal. Good deal. So,
Before we take a deep dive into questions, I do want to talk about all the plants we have in here this
Oh,
morning. So
boy,
we
yes.
decorated the green room with Monrovia pollinator plants. So plants that are blooming, plants that are pollinator friendly, because we are doing a giveaway, and Tyler could probably give us some more information
yes,
on
you
that.
can.
That's right. You guys, that is right. So
Yes,
you put
that's
me on the
No, I'm
spot.
not.
This is called a stretch, Tyler.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're having the Be a Winner giveaway, and
cool.
basically Monrovia's BEE,
Bye.
BE, a winner, and Monrovia's putting it on. So we're basically a participating nursery in this giveaway, and there is a code that you can scan. It's on a sign as you walk into the annuals greenhouse. With your phone, you can scan it, or you can enter the URL. Select Bates Nursery from the drop-down once you enter your zip code and fill out the info, and bam, you're entered to win one of 10 1-gallon pollinator plants from Monrovia.
wow.
Now, this has nothing to do with Aunt Bee, right? Nothing to do with Aunt Bee. She's not involved. at
No,
all?
not Aunt Bee.
Okay.
No, she's a sweetheart. But,
Otis,
but we
probably.
did
Maybe.
not get her involved with this one.
Okay.
Okay. But there it is. So
There
you
it
have a
is.
chance to win a free
Well, what do we
pollinator-friendly
have in
plant.
here for pollinators? We have echinacea, we have lantana, we have
Honeysuckle.
some lonicera or honeysuckle over
We've got some Northwind switchgrass.
there. Yes.
Which
That's a
is
pollinator?
personally one of my favorite plants.
Okay.
Yeah, I rated Bridget's display. So if you follow us on social media, you saw the photos of the displays that Tyler put up, which also has more info. So if you missed it, you can always go back and rewatch what he said, or you can head to our Facebook or Instagram page to take a look at it. But there's also a beautiful picture of Bridget's display that she put together, which I completely rated. So it is empty right now, but it will be refilled after the broadcast this morning.
But, and for those who don't know, Bridget is our resident grass expert.
Yes.
If you have questions about grass, she's a prairie girl from the get-go. So if you have questions about ornamental grasses, she has answers in depth.
Very
She
cool.
does. She could talk about
And
it all day.
heart.
Well, can I have the first question today?
Sure.
I think that
Take
was
it
the
away,
first
Josh.
question.
Well,
wait,
another.
oh,
Can I have
yeah.
another? May I?
You can have the second.
Okay, or the third.
No.
Of the fruit-bearing ficus fig trees that you have here on site, which would you consider to be the most hardy?
Chicago hardy.
Okay,
As far
really?
as cold hardy.
That's what I have.
Okay,
Now, that doesn't mean it's. I mean, we're talking like very small degrees of hardiness, more so. I mean, I've had folks say that brown turkey does just fine too. So that's probably the one most people are familiar with. But Chicago hardy is, I think, technically the most cold hardy. Now there might be one or two more now. That
what
I
about
don't
this
know.
little Miss Figgy that you got?
That
out?
one I don't know much about.
Okay.
So I think it's a dwarf, but I don't know. You know what I would tell folks is expect them to die back to some degree every year. It doesn't matter what kind of winter we have usually, unless it's really protected somewhere and we have a very mild winter, you're going to have dieback.
Because I have to replace one. I had 3. I have 2 Chicago Hardies and 1 brown turkey. And I've got life on 2 of those 3.
I would be careful before I started digging that one out.
I'm not saying I'm digging it out, David. I'm saying I'm getting prepared for it. But
you need to be looking around at the ground closely because twice before I've got a King Arthur, excuse me,
Poor
fig
Alfred.
at my house that has been killed to the ground multiple times, as Adam was just discussing, and but at the last moment I dug back closely, you could see one little leaf coming out, and the thing to be mindful of about figs is that the root system's not been harmed. It's just that part that's above the ground, so recovery can be rapid. And mine at my home this year, which it got killed back to the ground yet again, is showing quite a lot of growth.
Right at the base. I've got one that's right at the base. It's coming back. I wasn't sure that it was going to go, but the one next to it is a little, I don't know, like I said.
Now, most figs, if you have a mild winter, like Adam was alluding to, can produce figs twice in the season.
Wow.
They'll do the early crop. Now, this is not one of those years because all the top growth got killed back off, so they will have to come from the flowers that the wasp, of course, pollinate, and that's one of those fun facts about figs, is that they are actually pollinated by wasps. So anyway, we expect figs, but it'll be late this year.
Linda Claytor on the YouTube is saying that she just had an expandable hose pipe puncture on her this morning. She had a backup ready to go. So it's hose pipe.
Now we know.
Now we know.
Now the backup is the main hose.
So no redundancy.
The actual hose.
Yes.
Very good. We got questions though.
We have so many questions this morning, so let's dive on in. Weeping cherry tree is dead on top half. It only has growth from the ground. What do I do?
What it is now, you have a regular cherry tree.
non-weeper.
You have a non-weeper now, so you can either
It's happy.
you can cut everything else out and let it become a multi-trunk cherry, or maybe pick one of those that's coming out of the ground and just let it grow and become a new cherry tree. Or if you want a weeping cherry, you'll have to remove that one and buy another one, unfortunately.
Yep.
And why is that?
Yep.
Let's talk about grafting for just a moment.
Well, it could be partially from the freeze. It could be several different reasons. But when they break the graft, it is because it has been stressed in some manner. Insect damage is most common, but could be drought, could be cold,
Wind.
Yep. I mean,
and the effect that we saw from this event that occurred just before Christmas this past year was a phenomenon we have not seen really previously, was of freeze-related desiccation. That is that because of the extreme temperature drop combined with extremely high winds, you had plants that were perhaps not fully hardened off. And because the cells were still somewhat engorged with fluids, they had not really gone into full winter dormancy. That moisture got stripped out by the cold temperatures and the accompanying winds. Therefore, you're seeing damage on things that we've not seen before. Top grafts on cherries could certainly be one of those. We've seen things. I've seen Hicks yews. Now, these are a zone 5 hardy conifer that are, you would say, well, it didn't get cold enough to hurt them. Well, it did this year because of the desiccation. So yews are a fairly heavily foliated conifer. They've got thick, wider needles, and consequently, they got the moisture stripped out of them, and therefore a lot of damage. So hopefully in our lifetimes, we will not see this kind of event again. But I think that explains a lot of things of the randomness of how some of this has occurred.
Yep.
Yes, it does. What a winter we had. Let's talk about blueberries. Those are a little happier.
Blueberries.
I have 2 well-established blueberry plants that are at least 8 years old. Their leaves are turning yellow. Do you have any idea how to get them back to green like they were before?
Hollytone.
Yeah, buddy.
Yep.
Quick answer
And
right there.
lots of Hollytone. Like double whatever the bag tells you to put on them.
It's almost
Really?
it's hard to burn with that stuff.
With that
isn't it?
stuff, yeah, because it's organic and it's slow release by nature. The organisms in the soil have to break down that material for it to be released. So, unless you just bury it in Hollytone,
Plant it straight
Yeah.
in Hollytone.
Now, the high end of the pH range in Middle Tennessee is generally around 6.8. Blueberries like to be between 5.5 and 6.5. Now, 6.5 is the upper end. So
Yes.
if you did nothing, it would still be too high. So Hollytone helps. And what Hollytone, it has elemental sulfur in it. And that's a great thing for changing the pH, and it will
Quickly.
do it for a longer period of time. But it's not especially fast. You have to do that months in advance. So if you're going to be successful with blueberries, you really need to keep administering elemental
year.
sulfur.
yeah.
Yeah, at least annually,
Yeah.
maybe
It's good
even
for
twice
your
a year.
it's good for your magnolias. It's good for your conifers too, isn't it?
If you put it on in the fall,
Yes.
you'll be getting benefit from it in the next spring because it takes at least 60 days for it to start breaking down.
Well, I usually tell people that it's relatively fast because in a lot of people's minds, they think that putting pine mulch will lower the pH. And
Yeah.
yes, it will over decades.
Yes.
So with Hollytone, months is quite a lot faster. So
And if you need to effect a rapid pH change, you could use something of a compound like aluminum sulfate or something that has sulfur in it. Those will react much more quickly, but they don't last very long.
right.
So that should help you.
Okay. Arborvitaes look great. Now, when and what should I apply to prevent bagworms?
Oh,
Neem oil, and I think it may be even a little too late at this point, but
Father's Day is what we usually say.
Yeah, I
is
mean,
the
you
D-Day.
probably could still do it.
You say
and still
Father's
have
Day?
some-
Father's Day is
Yeah.
the D-Day for the at-home show.
Yeah. So yeah, neem oil is what we recommend for that, and it also helps with mites and other things too.
We don't mean maybe.
Maybe.
Not maybes, but mites. And also keeping them healthy will help fend off. I've on my green giants, I've only had 1 or 2 instances of bagworms, and I didn't spray. I picked what I could get to off.
Yeah.
Put them in a bucket of soapy water, but they just kind of went away. I didn't have a huge infestation, but
Yeah, and taking action early is really the key thing. If you wait until you see them on there, you've already
Yes.
missed your opportunity.
Yeah.
They're very easy to control when they're at the juvenile stage and they don't have that heavy bag of foliage that they've been working on surrounding them. It makes them very resistant to being sprayed. But when they're young, they're very susceptible. So doing it now, anytime, and for now over the next couple of weeks is when they're just emerging. But they're voracious eaters. So
And they're
Be-
quick builders
be on
as
the-
well. So
yeah, they might only be an eighth of an inch long right now, so they're very hard to spot. You have to look quite closely. But whether it's bagworms or spider mites, the good thing is that one treatment is effective on both of those things, regardless of which approach you're taking. Some people will use a systemic, particularly if it's something really large and they don't have spray equipment to be able to reach the entire plant. But that's one approach. But even insecticidal soap I have found to be effective. What? Look, she's talking off camera. Caught her. But by doing that, the main thing is treat them. Treat them as though they have it. That way, you'll be able to prevent it and not have a problem with them.
Well, and yes, and the issue with mine was because they were so big, so I would have had to have used a systemic. But
Right.
the bigger issue with systemics nowadays is the USDA is kind of phasing most of them out because of
Right.
the
Imidacloprids
danger,
and-
the danger to, as we were talking about earlier, pollinators. So
And we don't want to endanger them.
no, we do not. They want to
Probably for most homeowners, a hose-in type sprayer that has the ability to throw at distance is the most effective way. And you can easily reach up to 20 feet with those, but your timing has to be really good. And spraying is not, the conditions are not equal 365 days a year. You have to find and look for the right opportunity and time of day and proper temperatures to be able to have success at it. So you need to do a little research in order to make sure that you have a good understanding of what it is that you're trying to do, and to have those be available and effective. Otherwise, you're kind of just spending a lot of effort in not getting the results you need out of it.
And good math skills to be able to convert those the directions on the label of the materials.
If you work early enough, you can use very benign type of chemicals that are much more forgiving on that. But if you're using things that are a higher chemical value where you have missed your early opportunity, you have to be especially careful at that point. Hey, something that takes a lot of the effort out of gardening is Earth Mix garden products.
Yep.
And when you use Earth Mix, you are assured of getting the very best of all the things that Mother Nature provides in your soil. In fact, if you're using Earth Mix garden products and you plant in and with those products, you won't even need to fertilize for the first month or 6 weeks. It is naturally nutritive. Things such as endo and ecto mycorrhiza fungi, humic acid are all incorporated into the various amendments and blends of Earth Mix garden products. And they are 100% organic. There's no chemical additives of any type. And plants that are grown healthily and organically are naturally more resistant to any kind of a pest that comes down the pike. So no matter what you choose, whether it's Earth Mix Supernatural, Earth Mix Landscape, if you're going to be planting trees and shrubs, is a really great choice. Caroline, of course, will recommend Earth Mix Proganics I. It is a peat-free, 100% organic indoor growing media. You won't get those pesky old fungus gnats that come with things that have peat moss in them. No peat in any of the Earth Mix products. So check out the complete line of products at earthmix.net. If you want to find the nearest location, simply go to earthmix.net and click on the Find Earth Mix tab. And once you are there, you'll see a map appear with all the little drop pins all over Middle Tennessee, Kentucky, up into southern Indiana, also into southern Ohio, northern Alabama, west and east Tennessee. You can either type in the directions, your address in the address bar, or just zoom in for a location nearest you. So just remember this: success in gardening begins at the ground level when you use Earth Mix garden products. And we appreciate you giving us a moment to talk about that and help you have success with minimal effort. I think oftentimes the battle is won and lost because people they try to make it too difficult. And Earth Mix products really strive to take the work out of the process. So there you go.
Absolutely. The best on the market. No kidding.
There I am. Tyler muted me. I was over here singing to him. Okay, so our next question is about flowers for a cutting garden, and that is a great question for our very own Melissa McKay, who works back with our annuals. She's actually grows her own flowers and makes arrangements. She is fantastic. But currently my favorite that I have that have been in a vase on my kitchen counter for about 4 days is milkweed, echinacea, and yarrow. Those are all doing great for me right now. I just find that a lot of perennials really do well as cut flowers, and zinnias. A lot of people don't love them, but I do, and they just flower all summer. They're great in the heat of summer, and they're drought tolerant. So those are some of my favorite. I don't know if any of you guys have good cutting flower suggestions. Adam?
Dahlias.
Oh, that's a good one. Melissa had one last year that we brought in. I wasn't here on that broadcast, but I saw it, and it was like the size of Austin's head, I think. Right?
It was big.
It was big.
Yeah,
It was huge.
He's got a big head, so that's a big dahlia right there.
Now, I planted zinnias this year for the first time. So, I mean, it's going to be Got them right over there by my echinacea.
This is the first time you've grown them? Mm-hmm. Wow, I grow them every year. I love them.
If you like
Yeah,
something
the one thing about zinnias you got to be mindful of is they don't like it staying overly wet now.
Oh, really? Okay.
They don't.
Much of an issue right now, but particularly if you're getting a lot of over the head water on them. And I think that's something worth talking about for just a moment. Is people have this conception that they somehow need that the foliage of plants needs water, and that's not the case. The soil needs water. It will bring it up into the plant. Now, it's okay if you've got dusty looking foliage, you want to wash it off every now and again, but if you make a regular habit out of watering from overhead, it can create problems. But you might also ask, well, don't you guys do that every day at the nursery?
Yes.
Well, yes, but we do it in a way that we try to irrigate at the right time of day, give that foliage a chance to dry off before it goes into darkness. So or we water early in the morning.
Yes.
So timing is a big part of the success in doing that. And as for most of the plants, overhead is the way that we must do it. Now we have laurels, as you may see in our area, where those are put on a drip, simply because that there is a fungus that can be exacerbated by overhead irrigation. So the worst ones we put under an overhead cover where they get no water on the foliage at all, and that makes the problem go away. So the sum of all of this is, if you want to prevent issues when you're watering, particularly zinnias in particular, don't regularly water them overhead. And where the water stands on the foliage or in the flowers.
Sandy on Facebook says Cosmos.
Oh, those are great. I've got some growing right now as well. There's so many options out there. Mm-hmm. I love a good cut flower garden. I'm going to have so many next year because I've planted a lot. So one of our questions was, what's the best time of day to water? So David, I think you just answered it. Obviously 3:30 is the best time to do anything, really.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yes.
But David, were you saying morning or evening? Just so we can wrap up that question.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, if you apply water correctly, and if you're watering with a hose around your house and you're applying the water to the soil, it really doesn't matter what time of day you do. People will say, well, does it need to be morning or afternoon? Well, if we waited until those times exclusively at the nursery, we would never get anything watered. And Caroline frequently waters throughout the day, or she has someone assisting her in that. Down in our greenhouse area, it's the same situation. Plants need water when they need it. So if you don't want to be stressing a plant by allowing it to go too long between waterings, just because it's at the believed to be the wrong time of day, apply the water correctly and it won't be an issue for you.
Perfect.
All right.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about clematis a little bit. How do I keep my clematis blooming all season? Last year it only had one flush of blooms. My clematis is not.
Well, last year it could have been because it got really hot really quick. Like this time last year, it was already almost 100 degrees, dry. So that's not good for. What they're going to do is they're going to kind of shut down at that point. So some of it's climactic things that you can't control, but if you want to, you can put on some, earlier in the year, you want to put on some flower tones so it has a chance to start to work in there and stimulate flowers. Make sure they're kind of in the right spot, which is, full sun.
They like full sun, but they like to have their roots cool.
Roots cool, yeah. So
preferably they're planted behind some foreground planting that shades the soil.
Right.
And that goes a long way towards helping.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Last year, the soil got real hot real quick, and so they just kind of shut down. So
they were not happy about that.
Mm-hmm. No.
Poor little guys.
Nobody was happy.
No one was.
I wasn't.
Tyler was really mad. He told me all about it.
MAD.
What's wrong, Tyler? The soil's warm.
And I'm upset right now. That sigh. Let's talk about something else sad when it comes to plants. Is heuchera deer resistant? Looking to add color in a shady spot? Prefer perennial. Then they said, thank you. That word was hard. I find that my heuchera doesn't usually get messed with, although one time I did a big brag on my watermelon carnival heuchera. I showed pictures to everyone at the nursery.
And then it got 8.
And wouldn't you believe it, the next morning I woke up, I did my morning plant walk with my coffee,
Where'd
looked
it
down,
go?
and something took a big bite out of the middle and then threw the leaves all over the
Where'd
yard.
it go?
It was the worst. It's like it knew I was talking about it, knew I was bragging. I was so proud of that heuchera. Didn't even eat it, just took a bite, and then the leaves were all over the place. So I would say it, I mean, for me, it's been pretty deer resistant.
Yeah.
Maybe just don't brag about it.
Right.
It'll be
Don't tempt
fine.
fate with deer.
Don't do it. Yeah. They're gonna take bites of anything
They
though.
Yes.
tune in occasionally to the show here, so they
Yes.
were
Mm-hmm.
they were
Yes.
feeling challenged, and of course, deer resistance is largely a function of either the texture of the foliage. Do they just not like the thorns in their mouth, or it has some scent or some fragrance that they do not like, and it turns out they're very resistant to most smells and most texture. So there's not much they won't eat, but if you can mainly confine it to things that are conifers, it may be necessary if you've got, depending on what you have planted, to use repellents in the garden. And those are particularly effective at this time of year when you're not having daily rains or even weekly rains, because they tend to have to be reapplied between waterings. So if you've got it down and it hasn't rained, then you're still getting protection out of it. And right now, we're going more than a week between rains. So there's that.
A long time between rains.
Yep.
All right, let's give a shout out to Miriam. Our next question
Miriam.
comes from Miriam. Good morning, Miriam.
Morning.
Can you talk about pots? I've noticed patio plants and plastic pots seem to need more water.
Yeah, that's because the roots are above ground and exposed to air movement and warmer temperatures. So, and that's what's so great. We were talking about Earth Mix products earlier. That's what's so great about Earth Mix Proganics O, because it is a denser mix for outdoor plants in a pot. And so I have 2 small pots. I think I've said this before on the show, with Mexican heather in them.
Talked
And they
about
are
last
planted
week.
with Proganics O. And normally if it was a normal potting soil, I'd have to water them probably twice a day. I don't know, but I do it every other day now because
Right.
the Proganics O is so good at holding moisture. So
And that's another great point that you're making there, Adam, because most of the moisture retentive soils that you see on the market, matter of fact, I don't know any that don't, other than Earth Mix, utilize moisture crystals, which are a chemically produced thing you can incorporate with the soils that expand and absorb a lot of moisture. Proganics O or Earth Mix Garden, both of those products actually have native soil in there.
They got real dirt.
Actual real dirt. And I understand there was someone had a question about, what's the difference between Earth Mix and dirt. So that may be something we want to get into here. But what having some native soil in there does is that it reduces the porosity. It fills those pore spaces, and if you're using it like Adam's talking about in a outdoor planter, Proganics O gives you just the right amount, because there is a fairly delicate balance to hit between adequate porosity. You want it to perk, but you don't want it to release all of the moisture that is within the media so quickly. So we've worked really hard to try to develop that just right blend. And it does a great job of mimicking what you'd hope to find in the ground, without having to use any kind of chemical or crystals or gel type additives. It's all natural product.
Yeah, natural moisture crystals doesn't really
No.
sound natural to
No,
me.
they don't
No.
exist.
No.
You mean you don't dig them out of your yard when you're planting? They're
No.
Where's
Well, I guess
Most
I've-
crystals that I run
There-
into
there
are
might be
not
some-
porous at all.
there might be some crystal mines somewhere, some moisture crystal mines somewhere that we don't know about, but
We haven't found it yet.
they're
Okay,
definitely way below the surface. I've read sci-fi books.
It's got to be Antarctica.
I did allude to a question that I understood someone posed to us, is that what's the difference between Earth Mix and dirt? Adam, why don't you speak to that for a moment?
Well, so the garden, we'll just take that as an example, is a blend of topsoil, which most people could also call dirt. My soil science professor at UT Martin, Dr. Duck. Shout out to Dr. Duck. He hated the word dirt. We had to use the word soil because it was a bad. It was a 4-letter word to him, obviously. But anyway, so
soil, unfortunately.
So what we call topsoil, it has been laid down by dozens, hundreds, thousands of years of
glaciation,
flooding,
wind.
Wind, erosion, and so we take that and the byproduct of what nature has done, and we augment it with some other natural products like magic or mushroom compost and the supernatural compost that we make on hand. We mix that all together, and it creates a product that is perfect for gardening. Now, that's not to say that, if you've got some, I don't know where you would find this, but if you've got some land somewhere, some pasture somewhere that hasn't been depleted or used forever, it could have similar amounts of nutrients and whatnot in it, but
could also have some of the pests in it as well. Yes.
Correct. So that's
and part of the challenge in producing organic soils is doing it without the introduction of foreign weed matter. Right. So that's another pretty tricky process that has taken us a while to figure out. So I appreciate you putting that explanation out there, Adam, and help everybody understand that Earth Mix is our attempt to be able to create a bag product that is as similar as possible to what you would get if you dug it out of the ground, but blended specifically for target applications.
Right. Well, the closest thing I've ever seen in nature was my grandfather's garden in East Nashville.
How long did he work on that?
I don't know. Yeah. I never saw him put anything in it, though. Because the house was built in the late 40s, they didn't strip the topsoil off at that point. And so they're really near, the river, which is flooded and flooded and flooded for thousands of years. And so the native soil that he had there, the loam, the silty loam that was just in his backyard, that's what we're trying to recreate.
The cradles of civilization were the Tigris and the Euphrates and the Nile, folks. And I mean, they all lived in.
And next week's program will be about Greater Mesopotamia.
Yes.
In case you're curious.
Study up, folks.
Get your Hittites ready, baby. Okay.
8th grade history. It's coming back. Ooh.
I'm going to be sick next week.
We do have another example, if Tyler can bring up the picture, because this actually got sent to me yesterday.
Can you do it, Tyler?
I think he can, because I think he's
That sounded like a challenge.
Yeah, I can.
I don't know. He's busy.
I absolutely can.
I was giving him a little heads up.
Everybody look away.
Look away.
And then look back.
Okay.
Oh, look at that.
There you go.
There you go.
Now, this is an example of a friend of mine, Jake and Holly David. They're big believers in Earth Mix as well. And these two saplings that you see here came from a tree giveaway that we talked about earlier this spring. One went in the ground, one went in Earth Mix. Now, given the fact that one's still in a pot, we're gonna do a little bit of a comparison, but I'm gonna say right off the top of my head, that's about a 40% difference in the quality of the tree.
Well, you can look at the leaves and tell the leaves are 40% bigger.
And you've got that they're fuller and it's taller. I mean, they were all exactly the same. So, I mean, there is a real life example of what it is that you can get with Earth Mix products. Mm-hmm. So. Got it from one of the dealers over in Franklin, too.
Yeah, so, that's one thing that I'll say. I'll just add, a reason to do this is if you're in a home that was built after 1985, for sure, the topsoil that you have was stripped away and sold to somebody. Mm-hmm. And so if you're planting in your yard, you are essentially left with subsoil. So that's why we really recommend amending where you plant anything.
And it's getting worse and worse and worse.
Yes.
I see these job sites daily, folks. I mean, they're planning on rock shelves.
The definition of topsoil is changing greatly. It's what used to be considered
crush and run is what they use now. So I mean,
anymore. So it's it's one of those challenges in gardening that we feel like Earth Mix products give you the best tools in the arsenal to combat poor soil conditions and giving you a more level playing field and having success in the things you're growing.
Very good.
Hey, speaking of growing things, why don't we talk for just a moment about where we are right here, Bates Nursery and Garden Center.
Yeah, buddy.
And I'm having a hard time getting my screen back up here.
It's 3810 Whites Creek Pike. It's just 0.9 miles north of Briley Parkway. Yeah.
Yeah, we are. But what we do is that we have how'd that picture get back in there? That's the picture Josh sent a couple of weeks ago of my doppelganger and him back in the day. Anyway.
David's stunt double.
Yeah, I need one at this stage of the game, folks. I desperately need.
He can do it. He's got a 300-acre farm, man. He could be your double. I mean, it could be all that. So, things are good.
Bates Nursery Garden Center. We are an A to Z seller of plant materials. Everything you need to go with them. Whether it's trees, shrubs, ground covers, ornamental grasses, fruiting trees, Japanese maples, things that are ornamental. An entire line, extensive selection of perennials, or a vast array of annual plants that we have. Right now, for Bates Rewards members, we've got vegetable plants on sale, 75% off. You heard me right. You buy one, you get 4 extra or 3 extras to go with it. So that's what 75% is actually.
It's 3/4 off.
We'll do the math lesson a little bit later, but what you get is 75% off all your vegetable plants. So you need to come get them. Wild selection is still pretty good because they're going to go fast. In addition to all the things we have here, and probably the most important ingredient that makes Bates Nursery and Garden Center what it is the level of expertise we have at every level throughout the staff. Whether it's if you run into Adam or one of the other landscape
or that scamp over there, Caroline.
Well, try not to run into me, but
take him out. That'd be pretty hard to do.
So back to my little spiel here, and of course, Caroline is another one of our valued experts. She specifically works in the tropical and houseplant area. So if you've got questions with regard to container plantings and those kind of things, she has a wealth of knowledge and experience. So make sure you seek her out and all the great staff we have here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center, where we've been able to continue to do what we do now for 91 years. And my grandmother started this whole experiment back in the height of the Depression, back in 1932. So I always try to be mindful of honoring my grandmother for the foresight she had and where she's enabled us to get to today. Now, I write a weekly blog, and if you go to our main page, you'll see there is a section that says New Blog Post. You can just click on that, and it will come up and give you the this week's selection. And, of course, this week it's June time, and talking about all the things associated with June. And certainly vegetable plants are front and center. So make sure you check that out. If you'd like to receive the blog post right to your inbox, you can go back to the home page. And if you'll scroll just down from the top, it will come back and there will be a blank to fill in right there at the bottom, just below where the right here. Put your name and email address in there and click that you actually want to receive it. And that will give you what you need to receive the newsletter. And if at some point in time you decide you don't want it anymore, just unsubscribe. We don't share your information with anybody here at Bates Nursery and Garden Center. So we really take that issue quite seriously. So we invite you to come see us. We're conveniently located 1 mile north of Briley Parkway at exit 19 on Whites Creek Pike. That's just minutes from Rivergate, Opry Mills, Nashville West, downtown Nashville. And I promise you this, no matter where you're coming from, it's worth the drive from anywhere. And by the way, we'll talk about this more next week.
Okay.
But we just crossed over the 30,000 subscriber number to the newsletter. So,
Congratulations.
Bravo.
that really blows me away. I feel especially grateful for that. So thank you for your support and for reading and for all the wonderful folks who interact with me every week. And I do answer each email. It's not always in real time. It takes me a day or two occasionally, but thanks for all the well wishes and kind words and encouragement. And, because I still need encouragement, folks. So thank you for that. And thank you for putting your trust in us as your supplier of green goods and things to help you get your gardening at its best. Bates Nursery and Garden Center, beautifying Nashville since 1932. And
You know what's really cool about that website? Look at him.
Oh, there it
See
is.
a young David there. Okay, yeah, it's searchable.
Bright, shiny lad.
You can look up everything on it, see if they've got it, because some people are not necessarily, let's say, easy to use a website, but so they try to send letters and text to see if you have something. But you can go out to Bates Nursery and find out.
And typically when I receive those kinds of requests, I just create the search link and post it back to them. And that way it helps people realize that, you can do these searches at any time on your own.
Yeah,
so,
you can send one to Diana because she's got questions. So, I mean, I've told her, go out on the website.
You know what else we've been searching for?
What's that?
This week?
What's that?
What's in bloom?
With Adam.
Caroline and Adam.
Yes. It's our time to shine,
baby.
Adam.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Well, first, at my house, my quick fire hydrangea has just gone into full bloom, and it is gorgeous.
Amazing.
8 foot tall, 8 foot wide. It's massive.
That is a big old hydrangea right
Yes.
there.
It's on the corner of my house. It's a corner plant, so
Specimen, if you will.
it is a specimen. Another thing I saw blooming on the way to work this morning is, and I think we do sell them occasionally. I think they kind of split the horticulture industry as far as what people think of them. But the catalpa tree, the princess tree or whatever it's called, those are.
Catalpa and princess are usually two different things, though, aren't they?
I don't know. There's so many common names for it, but it's in full bloom. It looks pretty
gorgeous.
good.
Talpa's been blooming for like 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get to say it last week. I was fully prepared to say it last week.
I'm sorry,
It's
Adam.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not-
Wow, I didn't mean to get this on.
Eventually, I'll
All this
get over
heat.
it. Eventually.
Not yet, though. Well, you have your mug, so. All right, what else is blooming for you?
Well, my Nepeta Walker's Low has been blooming for about 6 weeks, and it's still
mine's
blooming.
going wild.
Those are insane, those plants. And what is actually coming, almost blooming, I think it might be blooming today, is my goblin flower, the Gaillardia, I believe is the...
Yeah.
So
Mine has started
looks
blooming
really
as well.
good.
Yeah.
now around the landscapes, a lot of folks may be noticing that their Annabelle hydrangeas are, maybe they're not white yet, but they'll have these really hugely developed green flowers that are just getting ready to turn or just in the early stages of turning from green to white. And they're a really wonderful landscape plant simply because that they turn from green to white and then they turn back green again, which is, I think, really cool. So I think
Magic.
and if you cut those back severely, like I do at my house every year, they really are a very manageable flowering shrub that gives you a really great long season color in the landscape.
I've been seeing butterfly bush starting to bloom as well as oak leaf hydrangea. They're opening up.
Yes, my snowsicle. That's what I was going to talk about. I should have taken a picture, but I'll take one and we can show it next week if we
Primrose.
want. My snowsicle hydrangea looks amazing. She's gorgeous.
You might as well.
As well as my echinacea. My milkweed is popping off. My bee balm is looking amazing. My Jacob Klein is like 6 feet tall.
Wow.
Didn't know it got that big. Now I know. My heuchera's blooming. My hosta is blooming. I mean, it could go
Yeah,
on
this
and
is.
on.
I think the end of May, beginning of June is kind of the sweet spot for. There's just so many things blooming and starting to.
I've
starting to
noticed
bloom.
something in some yards in my neighborhood, a couple of yards, so I guess it must have come from somewhere, but it looks like what I think are delphiniums growing. There are these spire-like growths that are probably like 36 to 40 inches tall, purple, white, indigo. So, but they've been up for a few weeks now and just looking perfect. And I'm like, I mean, that.
Well, I would imagine that a lot of what we're experiencing this spring is because we actually had a spring.
Yep.
We actually, just now are we getting into the 90s consistently. So we've had a great spring, great moisture level until the last 2 weeks. Just reminding everybody, the last widespread rain we had was 2 weeks ago.
Time to water.
So yeah.
Giera primrose
Watch
too,
your water.
all over everywhere.
Yeah, I've seen
Gorgeous.
that taken over, eating the earth.
We
so-
have native primrose. Just
Yes.
we had a question this week come in for Bates inventory, and I learned that we do have the Missouri primrose, which is like a yellow.
It's
color,
a tall one. It will take over your yard.
as
it
well as
will-
the Mexican.
Yes, the yellow primrose will spread its seed everywhere. It'll blow into the wind and it will come up everywhere. It's gorgeous. I have it in like my medicinal plant garden, but it gets really big and it goes to seed and loves to spread. All right, so we do have a lot of questions. We're not going to get to all of them today, obviously, but we will answer every single one. But let's try to get a few more in before we run out of time.
Or out of town, yeah.
I'm going on vacation soon. I think I might be in that brain a little bit.
Speaking of vacation, somebody wants to know where Austin is.
Vacation.
Vacation. Okay.
Yes.
Hey, and the missing word this week is money.
Money. We haven't heard that a lot. It'll be back, though. Don't worry, y'all.
Yeah.
It'll be back, but we're going to miss Adam.
I don't want to appropriate the word from Austin. I mean, I could
Right.
use it, but that's his word. I'm not
That's
going to.
true. Yeah.
It's a
it is.
catchphrase
It's his
in a single
catchphrase.
word.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
speaking of money, let's talk about crepe myrtle,
Okay.
which might be money. I don't know what all y'all's thoughts are on it. Crepe myrtle has only suckers by now. Is there still any chance of recovery? I mean, it sounds like it's recovering
It
from
is
the ground.
recovering.
So
It is recovering, and that's what a lot of them are doing, especially the burgundy leafed ones that are relatively new. Those will die back to the ground even if we didn't have the freeze. Most winters they don't weather very well. So if it hasn't sent out any leaves on any of the stems above that at this point, I would probably just cut all that stuff out and let them regrow from the ground.
And you may want to, as you kind of alluded to there, thin the numbers of shoots that you
Yes.
have coming up out of the ground. You might want to say, I only want 5 or 7. And if you'll selectively pick those, where they're in somewhat of a balanced arrangement, that will divert that energy to those, and it will amaze you how fast they will recover.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could just let them all come up if you want a
Right.
really thick bush for them.
Yeah, I mean they'll grow 3 or 4 feet in a year. I mean maybe 5
Easily.
feet easily.
Yep.
easily, very easily. Butterfly bush, okay for full morning and afternoon sun.
Sounds
I
perfect.
say yes. It's
Sounds
gonna
perfect.
love that. They do like a lot of sunshine. How about why are my begonia leaves going pale? Maybe too much sun.
Too much sun usually is what that is. Yes.
Yeah, that'll
Yeah,
happen
and-
if I stick mine out and it gets hit. They'll.
Yep.
And you have to really get particular on the type of begonias. If you can get them out really early where they're more adapted to highlight conditions, they're a lot more resilient to that. So begonias in greenhouse conditions are typically grown where they're in some level of shade So if you go straight outside with those, they can get some burn, or they're more susceptible to the fading. The bronze leaf varieties of the begonias are much more resistant to high light conditions.
Yes, they are. How about, can hosta take full sun? Not really. It can in the early spring, I'd say.
Can
but
they?
Summer, they tank.
Can they? Yes. Should they?
Should they? No. They're
No.
not going to look great when it
Yeah.
gets hot. I made the mistake of thinking I had a shade bed a while back, and I planted some hosta. They look great
And you
until
figured out
about
you didn't.
right now. And then those leaves started started looking pale, and they started burning, and then the plant just crisped up. It didn't die, but it probably got
There
pretty
are
close.
some hostas that are listed as really sun tolerant, but they're not.
No.
But they're not. Yeah. They like some afternoon shade for sure.
Yep.
How to remedy sawfly damage on knockout roses.
Wait until they grow out of it. I mean, I've had that kind of damage on my knockouts. I mean, at least half a dozen times over the 16.
Goes with them.
It just goes with them. So what I've done is, if it's a real bad infestation, I just cut them back hard and wait for them to flush back out, because at that point the sawfly has gone to its next part of its
Next
journey.
party. Yep.
So then you'll be fine. So.
Okay. How about oak leaf hydrangeas has volunteers? Can I dig up and transplant without harming them?
Yes, but
Not right now, though.
no, you may want to wait till they're later in the fall or late fall.
You might be able to dig up if you're very careful
Yeah,
about
you
it.
have to be
and,
real
and
careful.
you have to be able to do it. I would not recommend doing it until like almost at dusk, and have it ready to dig out and put it in a container, get the soil in there, and
Yeah.
water it thoroughly, and keep it in a shady spot for a couple of weeks. It could certainly survive. If you've cut that stem off, it's like been an herbaceous shoot, which happens on those. You've got some roots with the stem. It's essentially soil layered as opposed to being air layered. It has rooted on that piece of cane, and you've got roots coming out intact with it. But as with anything at this time of year in particular, it's all about timing. You cannot leisurely put that thing in another pot. You can't have the roots out in the sun at all for any period of time, not seconds. If you want to have success with it, if you do all those things, you can do it. But this is not the preferred time of year.
Absolutely not. How about care tips for a newly planted Brandywine viburnum? When and how is best to prune it?
Well, one of my axioms that I use around here is, if you're in doubt about when to prune after it blooms,
go.
so that you are not in danger of pruning off
Losing
any
flowers.
flowers. So now, other than that, if you just really need to prune, if you can hand prune anytime you want to. If you just want to do a few snips here and there, that's not going to hurt anything. But if you're going to do a heavy pruning, then you want to wait, I think, until it's dormant, just so that it may be late February, something like that, right before it's about to, flush out.
So there it is.
Yeah.
I planted peony bulbs last year and still don't have blooms. Too deep or too young?
Bulbs, it could be too young. I mean,
Mine,
it could be either one, really.
Yeah. I did an Ito last year. It came up this year. It hasn't bloomed. So, which
Yeah.
I
Now,
fully
you did-
expected.
You did it from just a tuber?
I
Is
did.
it-
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took
Yeah.
about 3.5 months for it to show any signs of life coming up after I planted it, but it made it.
Yeah. Just young, I would say.
Yep.
Just wait.
It's a young plant. Yeah,
Yeah.
as long as it's living, it should be okay. And lastly, let's talk about 4 o'clocks. How do I get rid of 4 o'clocks? I've tried uproot spray and even boiling water. They do go wild. I have them.
I've done it. Never had them.
Really?
Luckily.
You can
yeah.
plant them from seed, which is what I did, and then they get these big tubers. I mean, they look like sweet potatoes in the ground. They get huge. I dig them up and just kind
Are
of
they edible?
throw them. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure they're poisonous, but I could be wrong about
Ooh,
that.
don't eat them.
Yeah, so don't eat
eat
them.
'em.
Maybe do some research. Maybe they are, but I feel like I saw somewhere they were not edible.
Well, for one thing, you just have to be persistent with things like that, because if you leave any part of it in the ground, it's going to try to, recover. And so anything that's got tubers or rhizomes, you'll need to keep pulling and keep pulling, keep digging
And
out.
they do break easily.
Yeah.
So I have it in the same bed as my passion flower, which I talk about quite often on this show.
Are you passionate about it?
I'm full of hate and passion about that plant. Yes.
Hey,
Yes, I
well,
am.
Real quick, boom, Gloria O'Brien. Shout out to her. This
Wow.
is
Oh, there
Japanese
goes the
maple that was
baby.
planted in 2014,
Wow.
and this
There
is
you-
it now.
There you go.
9 years.
That is gorgeous.
That's
That
the
is
difference in growth you
spectacular.
get over time.
Is that a blood good?
Beautiful.
I am not sure
it
that she
could
sent
be,
the variety.
could be, or could
Maybe
be Emperor One.
Emperor One.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful tree, though,
it's
and,
gorgeous.
and placed correctly.
Perfectly.
Uh,
Yes.
Can't be nicer than that. Well, despite the fact that you didn't believe we'd be able to, Carolina, it appears we got to all of the questions.
Oh, we did not.
No.
Well,
No,
We'll continue.
I don't think we
nearly
even got
all of
half
her
them.
selection.
Yeah, all the ones that I threw at y'all today. But like I said, we will get to them next week. We'll answer them in stories. We'll answer
Yes.
some through email. If we didn't get to the Google Doc, we will get to all of them.
And Adam, thank you for
Yes.
being part of the show here.
Well,
the
thank
last
you for having me.
week.
Yes.
Yeah, we look forward to having you back again.
My pleasure.
And,
He can slide in
Being
here
able
when he
to-
wants to.
Yeah, you can sit between me and Austin. We can fit all three of us on this side. Be
Well,
super cute.
okay.
it's well known that there are times where I have to take a day off, so I appreciate
See.
Adam filling in capably
Yes.
as always.
Very, very good. Very good. Well, folks, the music means this hour's just flown by. So I mean,
has
but
indeed.
that means we'll have to come back next Saturday morning and do
Why not?
another at-home show. I'll be here. Anybody else going to be here?
I'll be
I'll be here.
I'll be
Austin
here.
will be back. We'll get all
Money.
caught up. Yes,
It'll be money.
Money.
It's
It'll
gonna
be money.
Yeah.
Money will be back.
Money power.
Money
Hey,
power.
at home, stay safe out there. We'll see you next week.